good morning. Here are your answers from yesterday. So that is page 1, and that's the second page there. Here's your Fluent in 5 for today. And here are your answers. Okay, we've done tenths, we've done hundredths. We are going to go one column further over. So I'm sure most of you have already worked out. We have our whole ones. We then have our tenths. We then have our hundredths. What do you think is going to come next? Let's just put it as fractions, ones, tenths, 100ths, or decimals, 1, 0.1, 0.01. Hopefully you've spotted the pattern and that we're going to move on to thousandths. So a thousandth is 1 part out of 1,000 equal parts, and we write it as 0.001. Okay, so let's have a look. This is what it looks like on a number line. So if you have a look, we've got a number line from 0 to 1, and we've taken the first tenth and made it big to show what it looks like in tenths. And then we've taken the first hundredth of that and we've zoomed it in again so that we can see how much a thousandth is, okay? So if we were talking about it, last time we talked about it, didn't we, as being, this being a whole one, but you could also show a thousandth using one of the big cubes that we normally call 1,000, don't we? And one of those little ones is 1,000th, 1 cube out of 1,000 cubes, okay? So we've done it, we've got there by dividing by 10 again. Remember, that's what the columns in the place value grid mean. We take 1, we divide it by 10, we get a tenth, we divide it by 10, we get a hundredth, we divide it by 10, we get a thousandth, okay? So 1,000th looks like this, 1,000th, 1 part out of 1,000 equal parts, and we write it as 0.001. If you are still a bit confused, there is a fabulous website where you can find a Zoomable number line. I have put the website address there for you. I've just done a screenshot, so I zoomed in on the number line, so I had from 0 to 10, and then I zoomed in on this section, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger for you so you can see. Then I zoomed in on this section to split it into hundredths, and then I zoomed in on this section to split it into thousandths. So, you know, I can show you as many number lines as possible, but it might just help your understanding if you're able to go pop along to that website, have a little look at the Zoomable number line. And of course, you don't have to just zoom in on that bit. You could choose another little bit of the number line. Maybe you could make up, you could roll 3 dice and come up with a number with 3 decimal places, for example, 0.374. And then maybe you could try to zoom in on the right place to find that. Just might help your understanding a little bit if you're finding all this new learning is quite overwhelming, okay? Anything we can do that will help is great. Okay, so let's have a look then, moving on. Here is another way of showing 0.001. It's 1 cube out of 1,000, sorry. If you want 2,000s then, it would be 2 out of 1,000 cubes. 3,000ths would be 3 out of 1,000 cubes, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so quite similar to how we looked at with the hundredths and the tenths. Let's have a look then if we can start writing some thousandths. So what is the decimal for each of the following? 5 thousandths. Well, if I'm going to use my place value grid here, apologies for the lack of ruler. 5 thousandths means I'm going to have 5 in the thousandth column. I need to fill in these columns. You can't just have that 5 hanging out in the thousandths columns on its own. So that one would be 0.005. Can you pause and see if you can do the other ones for me, and then we'll go through the answer. Okay, so 6 thousandths would be 0.006. 7 thousandths would be 0.007. 8 thousandths would be 0.008. And 9 thousandths would be 0.009. If we were going along the number line, again, we'd be going up in thousandths at a time. So we'd go 0.001, 0.002, and so on. I'm not going to say all of them because I have already said the word zero an awful lot of times in this video. Okay, so let's move on then to thinking about if we had 10 of those thousandths. If we have 10 of them, using what we know about equivalent fractions, if you've got 10 thousandths, you can divide them both by 10, the numerator and the denominator, to give yourself 1/100th. If we were looking at it as counters in a column, you know that once you get to 10 counters, we can regroup for one of the next column along. So when you get 10 thousandths, you make 100th. So let's imagine then we've gone up through 6 thousandths, 7 thousandths, 8 thousandths, 9 thousandths. 10 thousandths would look like this, wouldn't it? Thinking about the pattern. And 11 thousandths would look like this, and 12 thousandths would look like this. And we can see what we're doing now is we're putting a 1 into a 100th column, and then how many thousandths are left. Okay, it's exactly the same as when we used tenths and hundredths, but this time we're going one step further. Let's have a look at this one then. So how would we write 300ths, 3 thousandths as a decimal? Well, there are no whole ones mentioned. We didn't mention any tenths. We've got 300ths and 3 thousandths. So it looks like this, 0.033. Again, if there's so many digits now that you're getting a bit confused, draw yourself a place value grid, get some counters, pennies, cubes, Lego bricks, anything, and actually build the numbers to help you, okay? Number 8, what is the decimal for each one? Well, I'd like you to pause and have a go at this one. If you're still unsure, keep the video rolling and see me go through them. Otherwise, pause now, have a go, and then unpause for the answer. Okay, it's quite difficult to see, but I can see there are 25 little cubes, so 25 thousandths. So that would be like that, 25 thousandths. And so that's going to be no tenths, 2 hundredths, because 20 thousandths is going to be 2 hundredths, and 5 thousandths, or 0.025. This time it's 35 of those little cubes, those thousandths that are shaded in. So 30 of those is going to be 3 hundredths. You can see there's 3 rods there. So 0.03, and then there's 5 left. So we'll put that on the end. Okay, this one is 0.199. This one I can already see we need to do some regrouping. There's more than 10 there. So I'm going to take 10 of those and I'm going to push them across to make 1/100th. So I've got no ones, no tenths, 100th, and there's 4 thousandths left. And then this time, again, there's more than 10 here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to add 1 to the hundredths there. Cross those out. So I've got 1 whole one, 3 tenths, 9 hundredths, and there were 3 thousandths left. Okay, how did you get on? Let's try a couple more. So number 9, change 12 thousandths to a decimal. This is how we looked at it last time, wasn't it? So you could write it like a fraction first, and then you can split it up. So they've split it into 10 thousandths and 2 thousandths. I'm going to just write it slightly differently. So I'm going to take my 12 thousandths and I'm going to split them into 10 thousandths and 2 thousandths. And I know, because of equivalent fractions, that that is equivalent to 1/100th. That's still 2 thousandths. So I've got 1/100th and 2 thousandths, or 0.012. Okay? If we were changing 112 thousandths to a decimal, same thing. It's almost identical to the one above, but this time I'm splitting it into 100 thousandths, 10 thousandths, and 2 thousandths. So altogether, I've got 100 of them, then 10 of them, then 2 of them. So I've got 112 of them, them being thousandths, okay? I know that 100 thousandths is equivalent to 1/10. okay, because I can divide them both by 100. 10 thousandths is equivalent to 100, hundredth, and 2 thousandths we have to keep the same. Okay, so I've then got no whole ones, 1/10, 100th, and 2 thousandths. Okay, you're going to have a little go now. So just to show a little understanding of thousandths and our new column, you've got 3 tasks from the practice to do there. Now, there was quite a lot today. You might want to go back and watch the video again. If you have got a really good understanding though, there is an extension task, which is here for you to have a go at. And I'll be back tomorrow with the answers to the practice.